From the Aishin Broadcast Studio, it's the Executive Spotlight.
Welcome to the AutoSuccess Executive Spotlight. I'm your host, Brian Ankney. Today, our guest is Don Andres from SCT. Welcome.
Good to see you again, Brian. Thanks for the invitation.
Yeah, it's always fun to jump in and do an interview.
Yeah.
I want to start on a topic that's a little different than most. I know that you have your own company, but you've also been working with CPI. Can you tell me about that? Who are they? What are you doing?
Yeah, Center for Performance Improvement, a great company. It's been around a long time. Works a lot with OEMs, with dealer groups. They're going to work in all facets of a dealership, so both variable, fixed operations. They ended up with a great relationship with Ford last year. Ford had a great initiative where they said, hey, we want production improvement with our service departments, but we know we can't do it ourselves. Our people don't necessarily have the ability to go in and tell a dealer how to improve. So they did something really unique. They paid to have professional trainers, consultants, coaches come in, and CPI was asked to be part of that initiative. I was then reached out to by CPI and said, we see you do this. We see that you've had some success. Would you like to be a subcontract? Would you like to come out and be involved with this Ford program? And it's been awesome. It's really been great.
Wow. So you've been traveling all around the country working with Ford dealers.
Yeah. So Ford had paid to go in for 2 days to do an analysis on a couple of areas. One, on really understanding how the repair order moved through the shop, right? Dealing with productivity, along with meet and greet. Obviously, they want improvement because they'll sell more parts, but they also know for customer satisfaction. The biggest problem that we see with ROs getting hung up in a shop, it leads to what? Poor customer satisfaction. So they knew what they wanted to get accomplished, but something as easy as improving an RO moving through a shop has lots of tentacles. So they would pay us to come in, do an analysis, and we would give them the results of a 2-day assessment. And invariably, many dealers would say, I love this, let's do some more, or how would I actually implement this strategy? So it's been very productive. I'll be happy to say that Ford felt as if CPI was one of their top performing consulting groups that they hired in terms of the results they got by the end of 2025. They saw that kind of improvement in those stores in relations to productivity and customer satisfaction. So we feel like it was a good win.
Now, I do want to talk more about how a repair order moves through the shop, but before that, I want to use my prop.
Okay.
So the last time that you were here, we talked a little bit about your book that was coming.
Yeah.
Now it's here.
Yeah.
Here it is. Tell me, now that dealers have read your book and seen your book, how are they responding to it?
It's really been well received in the dealer world. I've had a number of people say, hey, I read your book and I read it from cover to cover. I don't normally get a chance to finish books, but at 95 pages and short chapters, and it moved well, they ended up completing the book. So that was a fun thing. I've had dealers reach out and say, hey, I had 2 or 3 people tell me to read your book. I read it. When can you come out and take a look at my operation? So it's been well received from that part. I did get wore out a lot about not having an audio version. And so that was a whole nother thing to finally decide, okay, fine, I'm going to go ahead and do that. My original thinking was, and you'll love this, I think I thought that they would read it with a highlighter and just highlight key things, right? And you can't do that with an audio book. All that meant is I just showed my age, right? I mean, nobody uses highlighters in books anymore. But I did get the audio version done just about a month ago. I think it got completed and released, and so now all of your, normal audio apps or whatever it is you might use is now available on that as well. So I'm excited about that.
You've done a lot of travel in the last year, seeing dealerships, going around and every dealer does things a little bit differently. But what are some of the central themes that you really kind of noticed and appreciated as you traveled around, to different dealerships?
Well, there's certainly people doing a lot of things well. And it's fun when you get invited into a store that in fact really does a lot of things really well. and you're sometimes like, why am I here? What would be a reason they would raise their hand? Well, it turns out they know in the middle of the forest, they're not seeing everything. And they actually want to learn things that they're not seeing. And so to bring somebody like me in, and they're looking for me to find those nuggets that allow them to even have more growth. So that's fun. Then, of course, there are still a lot of dealerships that struggle just to get through the day, to get things sold in a timely manner, get the parts and these things. A lot of stores struggle with open repair order lists. We shouldn't see that, right? There's nothing healthy about open repair orders, and yet we got into stores, and I continue to get into stores sometimes. They have an unrealistically high open repair order list. And of course, that just means that everybody's been paid, tech's been paid, commissions may even have been done, and yet here the dealer's not paid, right? It hasn't hit the books yet. And so that's a concern. And when that happens is many dealers use their DMS as a means of tracking a vehicle as it moves through a repair process. CDK has that. Well, when you have open repair orders, that's just lingering in that system. So now an employee is fighting to find the current vehicles in the shop because of all this open repair orders that are now just creating all sorts of convoluted looks at what they're trying to get through, which is what? I need to contact this customer, I need to let them know where the status is, and I have to sift through all this data to get that done. So getting open repair orders, I've literally gone to dealers where I've done a visit, I've done an assessment, and I said, before we start on any kind of strategy change or process improvement, you got to close out these repair orders. Take a couple weeks, get that off your desk so that now you're open and ready to receive some new strategies, some new processes. Otherwise, your mind just naturally gravitates back to this pile of repair orders on your desk. So that's a leadership issue, right? That should be something that should be addressed and moved through. So yeah, I see a little bit of that.
Well, repair orders are kind of the central theme of this interview so far. So I want to stick with repair orders.
Okay.
And, from what you've seen in the last year going around the country, tell me the good, the bad, the ugly. I mean, I want to hear, what have you seen and how are shops moving repair orders through?
Well, okay, that's a big question because yes, we have open repair orders is one thing. We have stores that have very sophisticated quick lanes, express oil change lanes, things of that nature built right into their model. So you have a whole team that's getting managed over there, as well as main shop repair orders. So dispatch systems, very, very important. We see a lot of looseness in dispatch systems. And that is that idea of moving that RO through the shop. And what I mean by that is we can have electronic version. Maybe the technician is going onto a computer and logging in and just getting the next job that's assigned to him based on his skill level. On the surface, that seems great. But unfortunately, there's so many circumstances in a customer's life, so many demands that get brought to the advisor's attention that now that advisor has to manipulate that electronic system to accommodate a promise time. So he may say, oh, this is a waiter. Well, it's not really a waiter, but I need it in that shop because the car needs to get back by 2 o'clock for Johnny's soccer practice or whatever it might be. And the end result is that there's a lot of manipulation, I guess, for no better term, in electronic version. So ultimately what you end up having is you end up with a dispatcher. You end up with somebody that truly is now monitoring that. Well, if you're going to do that anyway, let's have a really high, sophisticated means of managing the repair order through the shop, which means I don't want to just hand it to a tech because he's qualified, and now it's on a stack that's on his bench. He's got his 8, he's got his 10 ROs somewhere in the process, waiting to be diagnosed, waiting for approval, waiting for parts. All those things are now stacked up on a technician's box. Well, that's not healthy because he doesn't know what should I be doing next. So it creates some anxiety. And then, of course, the writers themselves. they've lost the ability to be able to make any commitment to a customer, right? So moving a repair order through a shop at a high level with high level of communication turns out to be incredibly valuable. And I do work a lot on that. Yeah.
Well, I mean, what are some of the best ways that you've seen scheduling done? I mean, it sounds like that moving the repair order, it means, kind of a lot of communication, but I mean, it's easy to answer most questions with more communication, right?
Yeah.
But what does that communication look like?
Well, that's great. So that does get all the way back to the phone call with the customer that is trying to set an appointment. And I've got a BDC that's going to do that for me, or maybe I have advisors that are doing that. So we want to make sure we're loading the shop with the ability to move hours through the shop. So I'm always going to talk in terms of hours in a repair process when it comes to the shop, because that's the world the tech lives in. So I want to live in that same world. So I want to load my shop with the appropriate amount of hours. So I got my quick lane over here, which does have its challenges that need to be managed. I want a very good multi-point inspection. I don't want that car moved through and on its way with a very weak or even not performed multi-point inspection. I've had that happen. I was at a dealer in San Antonio that was dealing with 3-hour oil change, even though they had 4 lanes and oil pits and all the things you would think to make it highly productive for a quick lane. But because of the push, they literally weren't even doing a multi-point inspection. So we know we want to manage that. But even in the main shop, I don't want to hand out the work and now lose control of when the tech is going to look at it, when it's going to be done, because all that does is create anxiety for the customer. And the customer is asking one thing: when am I getting my car back? And the writer doesn't know. So all the way back in the beginning with scheduling, we're going to load the shop with the appropriate amount of work that we know we can get to, move through. And so then I want to have a dispatch system that has the ability to know exactly where that RO is in the process at any given moment. So that really the writer's not going to the tech anymore for that information. He's able to get it from the dispatcher, from the dispatch system. And then of course, and I know I'm going on and on about this, but there's lots of dispatch systems. There's simple groups, there's lateral supports, there's super groups, as well as traditional dispatcher type systems. And they all can work, but it does require a high level of communication with both the tech and the writers.
Well, you touched on MPIs there. And I guess the simple thing that you said is you've got to do one. But if so you definitely have to do one, but what does a good one look like? What can dealers do to do a better job doing their MPIs?
Well, it's everything. First, let's talk about why it's everything. And the sad reality is we do get into stores that are at 50% and 70%. You go, really? I think the customer believes when that car came in that somebody looked at it and that everything's good because they didn't tell them any differently. So that's the first thing. 2, we need that information given to the customer. Hey, there's some things we got to get accomplished on your vehicle, whether it's fluid exchanges, whether it's actual concerns we see under the car, a torn CV boot or something like that. So we want a very good quality MPI. And the good news is today, the video MPIs have been incredibly successful. One, because now the customer sees it's their vehicle. They're getting introduced to that technician, so I don't have to necessarily worry about, I'm not sure if the advisor's really talking about the car, my car, or if he's just trying to sell something. Now the video has firmed that up. This is your car. Here's what we're seeing. But it does allow the customer to now say, hey, I see this, but what does it mean? What is he really saying when he says, I need this CV boot replaced? And now the writer is having a real conversation instead of, do you want it? Or, hey, would you like it? Or we should do it. Now we're saying, hey, let's talk about what we're both seeing. And that's really changed everything. Now suddenly our closing rates for multi-point inspections for additional needed services has dramatically increased. So video MPIs, if you're not doing it, I think that is the future. But more importantly, I think just the fact that they're doing it for the right reasons. We got to get them up to speed on their car.
we're actually adding a video training into our Tomorrow's Tech brand, where we have online training for the kids in the tech schools on how to do a video inspection. Like, it's a project that we're just about done with, and it's something that they weren't teaching the kids at the tech schools for the most part, and now we're going to give them a great resource that this is why it's important, this is how it'll benefit you as a technician, and this is how you do it, and this is how you make it understandable for the customer.
That's so important, because if there's something with young people, it's the MPI. They don't necessarily understand the value. A flat rate veteran technician knows I got to shake down the car to make a living. I can't make a living just diagnosing cars. It's too difficult. Even customer pay that might flag a decent amount for the repair, the diagnostics alone can sometimes go left on you, and the end result is it becomes unproductive. And then, of course, warranty never really pays well when it comes to diagnostics. So if you're just living in a world of fixing prime concerns, the senior guys, the older guys, they learned a long time ago, I've got to shake down the car. I've got to tell them everything. And then whatever works in the customer's budget's fine, but at least they're up to speed. The young guys don't. They think they have a job to do, just change the oil, get on to the next one, swap out these tires, because they're learning the craft. And so they don't necessarily see the value of those MPIs. When you teach the young people to use a video and a camera, guess who gets it first? They're on it. It makes sense. They're comfortable holding it. They're comfortable talking into a phone camera. And the end result is they get really good really fast. I love the fact that you're getting that trained that early on, because now it's just the way they do the job.
Mm-hmm.
And they'll learn over time why it's so valuable, but they'll right now know that that's just what the job requires. So that's the right call.
Cool. I do want to talk about decline services. And, we talked a little bit about MPI, and we talked about, video MPI. We've talked about getting the repair orders through the shop. But if we can't get from the MPI to getting the repair order, we never have a chance to get it through the shop. So what can we do to kind of bridge that gap? What can dealers do to communicate with their customers better about decline service?
Yeah, I think decline services is a big number. If there's an area where we really grow service operations, it's not what we get today. It's the fact that the customers declined, either they got surprised, either didn't have the time or money. And the ones that really embrace this ability to get the customers back in and chip away at this list of things that we found is the one that gets the growth. So typical dealership might see a 30% approval. With the video MPIs, we might even get that to 40. If you're a high line, you might get to 50, 60% approvals off of these. Now, we have part availability, so we better have an answer if we've got to have the car stay, so we want to have those strategies. But more importantly, that's still 50, 60, 70% of the customers that have held off. So what is the plan? And it turns out they don't do much. They may have sent out some kind of email with a 10% coupon. Well, they weren't inspired initially sometimes to say yes. What makes them think the 10%? And so you get very little response from that. We have AI getting involved. AI is now starting to follow up on decline. Great, except for, again, if they didn't understand why it needed to get done and it declined it, well, we got to talk about that. And that takes really an advisor doing that. So what do? I almost always say we're going to have a very, very structured active delivery. I want to review what we did today. I want to review that MPI. I want to talk about what we did, what we found. Here's the thing you approved. Here's the things you wanted to hold off on. And let's you and I put together a plan to get started on that list. Now, one of the great phrases, I say this often, and you'll love this, but I've said this many times to advisors. When you're talking to a customer, those 3 items they declined, I can guarantee you, once they leave the store, if you called them 2 hours later, a day later, and said, what were the 3 items you declined? They probably aren't going to remember. Why? Because they went back to their life, back to what they have to get done. So in many cases, I will say to an advisor, to say to a customer during active delivery, it's actually easier if I call you. It's easier for me to remember these concerns than for you to remember. Because this is what I do for a living. Why don't I reach out to you in about 30 days? And if that works for you, then we can talk about scheduling you back in and we can start on this list. If that doesn't work, no problem. I can always go out another 30. But it's actually easier for me to remember your car than you to remember these 3 items because I do this for a living.
Mm-hmm.
And that resonates so well with customers because now they go, wow, you'll do that for me? You bet. Yeah, this is important. We just need to get them done before spring. We need to get them done before blank time of the year. And it's amazing how innocent that is. So active delivery, decline services, I believe that is where real growth starts to happen.
Don, is there anything more you'd like to share with our audience today?
Well, it's fun because 26, the amount of conversations about fixed operations is amazing. We saw that resurgence in 25, where suddenly dealers, owners, general managers were not just asking about what's it going to take to grow. They actually wanted to learn more about getting growth in their fixed operations. And that was fun. Well, now I think I'll be heading to NADA, and I can tell you the amount of conversations I've already had with dealers saying, here's what I want to learn. Here's what I want to go visit and understand better. This product, that product. Where does AI fit into that? That's exciting. That's really exciting. From an old fixed op guy, even though I finished my career as a general manager, the truth of it is it was that fixed operations that was the vast majority of my career. And to have owners excited about fixed ops again is a pretty exciting time.
Well, hey, I really appreciate you coming in today.
Thank you so much for the invitation again, Brian.
Yep, we'll have to do it again in the future.
Perfect.
And thank you for taking the time to join us for this AutoSuccess Executive Spotlight. I'm your host, Brian Ankney. Today, our guest has been Don Andres from Auto SCT. We hope to see you again on a future episode. This one's Over the Curb and Burning Gas.